I'm going to transition now to last week's new releases because there were three of them, right? We got the Led Zeppelin documentary, we got Heart Eyes, and we got Love Hurts. I'm going to go with Becoming Led Zeppelin first because that's the first one that I saw. I saw that on Friday in an IMAX dome, a 5-story high, I think it's 79-foot tall IMAX dome. And I gotta tell you, because I was like, well, man, this is Led Zeppelin, right? You want to be fully immersed into that thing. You want to see it as big as humanly possible. And I immediately I sat down in my seat. First of all, I'm like in a planetarium, right? Like it's literally this huge dome, like a planetarium. And they start to project the like welcome to the theater thing. And I was like, I've made a huge mistake. I knew it immediately. I was like, this is too big. I'm already dizzy. I feel disoriented. I'm sitting so high up too. But there were a lot of people in this thing. And that plays into my experience. So first of all, the documentary is incredible. It's fantastic. If you think you know the story of Led Zeppelin, you do. But there's things in this thing that I don't think we knew. Jimmy Page. They've talked to all the surviving members. You know, Jimmy Page, John Paul Jones, Robert Plant, and they've got archival footage, or it's actually an audio interview with John Bonham. And so it's all reminiscences, and then they're telling the story of how they became Led Zeppelin, and it really covers the creation of the band until 1970, the Royal Albert Hall concert, which was a huge crowning achievement. That's when they sort of, they outcharted the Beatles at that point, and that was when it was like the torch has been passed, the 70s has begun. This is a new thing. This is a new band and a new sound for a new decade. That's the arc. I would so much love to see the rest of the 70s in documentary form. Surely they talked to him about it. They have all these interviews. Hopefully they got enough footage to do more. But I mean, I don't know. I don't even know if this thing's gonna hit home media. I have no idea. What I've seen is like only in IMAX, and so I loved it. But you know, we're sitting there listening to Jimmy Page. He takes out this book. He's like, I've got this. Here's this little diary that I've got, and it shows all my sessions that I did when because he was a session musician. You know, of course, he played in the Yardbirds, and he played in all these, blues-based bands that were, moderately successful. But he was a very successful session musician. So I did not know that both Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones played on Goldfinger in the session with the full orchestra and with Shirley Bassey, Goldfinger, like they're in there, and I don't even hear really much guitar or bass in that song, but they played on that session, and he's like, I played with the Hollies, and I played with He starts rattling off all these bands, and I'm like, I didn't know that, because session players aren't credited, right? But he's got this little book that he's kept all these years. So it's like a 60-year-old book. And I'm like, can we look in that book? Can we look in that book? I want to see what's in that book. But I had this moment where I realized this is the biggest moment. It's like there's a shot of John Paul Jones with this bass guitar. They talk about the bass that he used. And it's so big that if you're listening to the audio version of this might be lost on you guys, but it's so big that like I start by looking far left, and I have to look all the way to the other side of the screen just to see the bass guitar. And I was like, oh no, this is too much. Like this is too, because I'm not going to be able to see it all, right? I'm going to miss information because it's too big. It's literally outside of my scope. But it's a fantastic narrative about the creation. I mean, like Robert Plant is very honest about who he was and about what, it's like, he was a hippie, and he was trying to, they all just came from different places. And it's fascinating how that gelled into this one sound and this one time. And, you can't really go back. So that's why it's important that this is a documentary. I think even remember the O2 concert, the concert from the O2 Arena, the Led Zeppelin reunion? Like, it's good, but it's not classic Led Zeppelin. Like, once that time has passed, you can't go back there again. So to see all this archival footage, it was just amazing. So I came home and just put on my Led Zeppelin DVDs, and I just basked in it. I just bathed in Led Zeppelin for a few days. But I gotta tell you guys, I hear you when I talk about going to the theater constantly, 3 times a week usually. Some of you guys are like, man, the theater experience is just terrible. So I had one of those terrible experiences, and I wanted to tell you about it because I'm sitting in this dome with, there's probably 40 people in there, which is not a ton, but you got to think of how it's set up, like a planetarium, right? So they're kind of right up on each other. And this guy behind me is explaining the whole thing in stupid terms to the woman that is with him. And I'm like, if you just shut up, anybody with eyes and ears knows exactly what's going on. He goes, like, he'll lean over, he's like, that's Robert Plant. He's the lead singer. I'm like, okay, I mean, it says Robert Plant, singer. Like, that's not news to anybody. Even if you don't know who Led Zeppelin is, the documentary tells you who they are. That's Jimmy Page. He's the guitar player. And I'm like, first 5 minutes or so, I'm like, ugh. And then he just continues, and it gets worse and worse. That's their first album. And then, like, they'd start on a song. The worst one. Because it's like, they play the opening bass notes to Dazed and Confused, because they're setting up Dazed and Confused. Like, boom, boom. And he leans over and goes, that's Dazed and Confused. That was a song on their first album. And then Jimmy Page goes, when it came time for Dazed and Confused, we wanted to make sure. And I'm like, okay, well, we've already told you that it's Dazed and Confused, right? If you'd waited 3 seconds, the person you're with would have known it's Dazed and Confused. And then, of course, they play the song, been so dazed, like Robert Plant singing it, and then it says in the corner, Dazed and Confused. So I'm thinking, like, well, maybe this person is visually impaired. When it's over, I'm going to turn around and he's going to be explaining this to her because she can't see it or whatever. No! I did turn around at the end of it. That's not the case. He was just an oblivious jerk, and the side eye didn't work, and the look over the shoulder with like that didn't work. Just oblivious. And when the music would get louder, he would talk louder too. So I want to go see this thing again. It's in its second week of release now, and I feel like if I go see it, it's still in IMAX at my AMC, which would be a smaller screen, but then I'll actually be able to see it all, and I can hear the music and everything. As intended in that beautiful, wonderful... By the way, the Dome had a 12-point surround sound system. So, I mean, it was incredible. And it would shake your body. There was towards, later in the movie, they do this... It's really like a psychedelic presentation, like a montage presentation, because they'll play a lot of the songs in their entirety. They do a presentation of or a performance of... I think it was Whole Lotta Love. Yeah, it was Whole Lotta Love. And I felt, because I can't even see all of the screen, and there's just like so much stuff coming at me, and I can't see the seats, I can't see the floor, I'm just suspended in space. Like, I feel, the joke is, I feel like I left my body. Like, I didn't really think I left my body, but it was so disorienting. I was just like, whoa, man. I'm as you mentioned, I'm in here straight. Like, I haven't taken no substances. I'm just enjoying the music. But it was so surreal. It's a great documentary. So I highly recommend that if you are interested in Led Zeppelin. I don't know what sort of a life this thing is going to have after it leaves theaters. The next thing I saw the day after that was Heart Eyes, which is released in time for Valentine's Day. It's part romantic comedy and part slasher film, and it somehow successfully manages to do both of those things. It's actually it is a funny romantic comedy, and it is also a disgusting fun slasher movie in the style of like an I Know What You Did Last Summer or a Scream, or probably those are very iconic. How about like an Urban Legend? Which, listen, I like Urban Legend a lot. But it kind of gave me the nostalgia tingles for that, It's like, oh man, this reminds me of the movies that I would go see in like 1998, It took me back to a time. And I thought it was really fun. I don't think it's great, That's the thing. A movie doesn't have to be great to be worth watching. I just want to feel like I spent my time well. That at the end of the thing, and because I love movies so much, there's always something that I'm going to connect with. I laughed a lot. I thought it was really funny, and that's the thing, is like it managed this. There's a scene. It basically again, I'm not spoiling anything. This is the premise of the movie. This slasher killer only goes after couples. It's this Valentine's Day. It's a holiday for couples, and so he's looking for lovers to kill. And the two leads of the movie, it's a man and a woman, and they have a meet cute in the movie, and they slowly start to like become more romantic over the course of the movie. And so he comes for them, right? And they're like, there's a scene like they're laying on the ground having just a narrowly escaped death, and look into each other's eyes, and they start to lean in for a kiss, and then the slasher appears, and they're like, dude, we're not together. And they're like, But if it looks like they're together, of course they're together. It's just really fun, and like all the tropes of the romantic comedy movie, like the like, you know what? I'm not even gonna go there. It just, if you know your romantic comedies, and I love romantic comedies, if you know them, it has a lot of fun with those. The songs that it uses, and the like, the scenes, and the sort of the there's a formula to it, right? I thought it was a lot of fun. Again, not great. It's probably, I don't do star ratings most of the time, because I think that people only look at that. They go, oh, he said it was a 2 out of 5. Good enough. No, I want you to hear what I said about it, and I want you to go see it. But it's probably a 3 out of 5. It's neither bad nor great, but it's good. It's worth watching. It trends towards like, yeah, check it out. And then I saw Love Hurts, which is the Ke Huy Quan, of course, from Goonies, and from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. No Time for Love, Dr. Jones. He's made this huge comeback with Everything Everywhere All at Once. He's an Oscar winner now. I don't love Everything Everywhere All at Once like some people do. I think it's fine. I think that's a fine movie, but now it's got all these Oscars, and I'm like, what? Jamie Lee Curtis has an Oscar for her role in that movie, and I feel like she doesn't really do much in that movie. If you want to see a great Jamie Lee Curtis performance, now check her out in The Last Showgirl, which is the Pamela Anderson comeback movie from this year. No love for that at the Oscars, I don't think. But she gives an incredible... Jamie Lee Curtis is incredible in that movie. And she does this... Oh, man, she does this dance that is so sad, because the idea is that they're Las Vegas. I'm going to get back to Love Hurts. The idea is that they're these Las Vegas showgirls. That time has passed by. They're not 20 or 30 anymore. Now they're 50 or 60 or getting close to 70. And Jamie Lee Curtis does this sort of, it's meant to be sexy. And it is, I guess. I think of her in True Lies, too. It is, but it's also profoundly sad. It's heartbreaking. And I'm like, that's an Oscar-winning dance right there. But she didn't even get nominated for it. What's up with that? So Ke Huy Quan, lovely guy. He has a great success story. He was basically, he'd been imprisoned in his home country, and he comes here and gets discovered by Spielberg and ends up in these movies and becomes like, kind of an icon for those movies. And then time goes on, right? And he has this resurgence because of Everything Everywhere All at Once. And now he's got this starring vehicle where he plays the action lead in Love Hurts, which is meant to be an action movie. I'm not gonna lie, I don't even know what this movie's meant to be. It tries to be everything, everywhere, all at once. It really does feel like you liked it in Everything Everywhere All at Once. Do you like it here? And the answer is no. The answer is no, I don't. It is a failure in pretty much every respect, and I hate to say that because I like the guy. I think they're trying to make him the new Jackie Chan. Or I think there was a conversation. It's like, it worked for Jackie Chan. Let's do that thing. If you remember, if you're remotely close to my age, I guess you don't have to be my age to know these movies, but I just observe that people younger than me, they don't often go back to older things older than them. In the early 90s, they brought Jackie Chan to America. First of all, they would adapt some of his movies. They would, dub them or whatever, but he had a contract at New Line Cinema in the 90s, 93, 94. I'm thinking like Operation Condor, I think. Rumble in the Bronx was a big one. They were action movies that relied on Jackie Chan's physicality and on his sense of humor, his likability. And frankly, they never really worked for me, and I still struggle. I've talked a lot about it here on the channel. I keep trying to watch these. I do watch these movies. Jackie Chan and Sammo Hung and all these guys. It just doesn't work for me. And so I go into this one, and I think that's what they're trying to do. Because, everybody loves him. He's Ke Quan. He's Short Round, right? He's Data from Goonies. We grew up with this guy. We love him so much. And we do. We did, and we do. Like, he's a really, really nice guy. He seems like he'd be wonderful to hang out with. And for most of the movie, it requires him to be a really nice guy who has a very violent, killer dark side. And I don't think he pulls off the dark side. I don't buy him as a dangerous man. Recognizing he has a black belt, and I think it's Taekwondo, recognizing all of that, I just don't think and the movie is terrible in how it approaches all of this. First of all, it's an hour and 27 minutes, and it feels longer than that. And that's including the credits. It feels so much longer than that because there's nothing there. This movie commits so many sins. It tells you things instead of showing you things. They introduce a character in jeopardy that we've never met before. That scene, like we don't care because we don't know who this is. It tries to make jokes that, I mean, it's bad. It feels very amateur. It almost feels like a student film that somebody was like, hey, you made this great student film for $5,000. What if we gave you 10 million? The same creator is, like, it feels amateur. It feels like somebody put all this money into something that is a first draft. And it just kind of bummed me out. I will say that there's this culminating fight at the end of the movie that goes on for about 15 minutes. And it's a really cool fight, and it's kind of, maybe that's how I feel about martial arts movies just in general, because I'll go through these Shawscope box sets, and I'll go through, 88 films, martial arts, all the, Shaw Brothers movies, and, Golden Harvest movies, all this stuff. And there's a lot of business and a lot of dialogue, and then there's like one great fight that lasts for 15 or 20 minutes at the end of the movie, and I always just like the fight, really. It's kind of where I get my money's worth, is with the fight at the end. And that's the case here too. And I gotta say, the dude does have the physical chops. Ke Quan has the chops to be an action star. He's got the moves, he's got the physicality. He doesn't have the sense of danger. Like, I don't get threat from him. But he's clearly talented when it comes to his ability to do these fight scenes. And to the movie's credit, I always knew where I was in the fight. I could always tell who was fighting who. They were shot well. The fight scenes were shot well. But unfortunately, there's all this stupid comedy wrapped around it. It doesn't work as a comedy. It doesn't really work as an action movie. It doesn't work as a romance because it's supposed to be a Valentine's Day movie. It doesn't work as that. It mostly fails at everything that it sets out to do, except for some of the action scenes. So listen, worth it for watching the action scenes. I do think you should see it. I would never say don't see something. I think you should see everything that you can. And maybe you'll get something from it. I got this action scene from it. I was like, you know what? That's pretty cool. You know what it reminds me of is back in the 90s, Chow Yun-fat had been in all these John Woo movies. John Woo, the legendary action director, Hong Kong cinema. We love John Woo, right? John Woo created this thing, the two guns, the doves, the spinning around in slow motion. Like, he created this thing. And then Hollywood goes, let's do Chow Yun-fat without John Woo. And they make this movie called The Replacement Killers. Now, I saw The Replacement Killers on opening day in the theater when it was brand new. And I really enjoyed it. But when I go back to that now with, middle-aged, much more experienced film fan eyes, I can say, okay, they copied the form without the innovation and without the substance that John Woo brings to his movies. They saw the action scenes and they were able to replicate a lot of those, but there's no soul to it. And that's really how I feel about Love Hurts. It's got some of the form, but it doesn't have the soul. And maybe he'll get a chance to do it again. I don't know. Maybe Ke Quan will get a chance to revisit. Maybe he'll get another movie. But, he's an Oscar winner. Should he be doing action movies?